Welcome to the Agape Purpose Podcast, and today we are joined by a very special missionary, Brian Berman of Project Mañana. How are you, Brian?
Yeah.
Hey guys, wonderful. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, thanks for being on. So before we get into your story, I kind of want to hear, what does a typical day look like?
Don't forget to introduce me.
You're just basically a co-host at this point, so do I have to keep it?
And
it's Bruce Bosco.
Thank you.
Sorry.
That's not important. Go ahead.
So what does a typical day look like for you in Santiago?
Wow. I don't know if there's anything typical about any days that we have here in the mission field or in Santiago, but I spend my time usually going between the office and working with some of our administrative staff into the field. We have a private school and a nutrition center and a holistic care center for medical and dental services. So I'm usually at one of those, leading teams of people and checking in with different department or project heads. So I'm all over the place. You could find me, either in a t-shirt and shorts, doing something with my hands, or sitting behind a desk trying to be presidential. One of the two.
That's what Bruce tries to do every day. No?
That's not funny.
That's not. Oh my goodness. All right.
Let's be serious.
This is a weird side of Bruce, Brian. I'm not used to this. A serious Bruce?
Bruce, you're awesome. That's all I have to say.
So let's go back a little bit in time. So what were you doing before you founded Project Mañana?
Yeah, so it's a great question because I love it, because I'm really the least likely candidate to be doing mission work and working internationally in ministry and doing what we do with Project Mañana. I don't come from a ministry background. I actually come from a corporate America background. Graduated and served my time in marketing, communications, public relations strategies, and then executive leadership, building teams and organizational development. So I spent most of my career in corporate America in Southern California, thinking that I was going to make lots and lots of money and get a white picket fence and a big house. And then all of that shifted after taking a 1-week mission trip in April 2007. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that side of the story. But previous to that, I was on my path of career growth to be a high producing executive at a big company.
So what was that moment that changed that whole direction for your life?
Well, I can give you the date and the time. It was actually March 18th, 2003, and it was about 10 o'clock in the morning. And the quick story was, we were at a local school teacher's celebration service. She was voted the favorite school teacher. She taught 6th and 7th, 8th grade math and science in Simi Valley, California. And she was being celebrated on March 18th, and I got to sit in the front row, and people said wonderful things about her. And then there was this one young lady that came up to the microphone, about 13 years old. She had this beautiful blonde hair, these big blue headlight eyes. And basically she said, with a stuttered voice in front of about 2,000 people, no eye contact. You could tell she was terrified to speak, but she said these words, Ingrid didn't know this, but I used to get detention in her class because I didn't have a mom like hers at home. And I just wanted to spend time with her. And that was my moment. That was the moment I realized you can invest in things or you can invest in people. The rest of the story, to finish it out quickly, was March 18th, 2003, was actually Ingrid Berman, my mother's 25th wedding anniversary to my father. And it was the same day that she went to be with the Lord after losing her battle with leukemia. And so it's not a sad story, but it was the impetus for me asking, what am I investing in? What am I doing? Then between 2003 to 2007, lots of things started changing in my life. Priorities started shifting. Investing in people instead of things started happening. And then April 2007, I took a 1-week mission trip to the Dominican Republic. And 4 days into it, I told the team leader, hey, I'm not going back. And then I did go back, but I resigned by August of 2007, gave away everything, sold everything I could, moved to the Dominican with 2 suitcases of clothes and a laptop computer on December 31st, 2007. And the rest is history.
Wow. So you say that, there was no sadness in your mother's passing, but it obviously shaped the direction for your future. So what kind of was that launching point from that?
Well, I think we all have these moments, right, in our lives where we have a stake in the ground, or we have this aha moment, or that moment where nothing will ever be the same. And certainly with my mother's passing, she was my best friend, mentor, wonderful spiritual leader in our family. And I realized, that life is so short. It truly was. And I was in my early 20s at this time. And, at that time, many of us think that we have so many years left of life. But the reality is it goes fast.
Mm.
And that moment shaped me forever to say, with the little time I've got left on this earth, how do I want to spend it? Do I really believe what I say I believe about storing my treasures in heaven, about helping people to come and find and follow Jesus? Or is that just something that I subscribe to in the Christian membership club? Or is it my true faith? Am I willing to, to proclaim that I believe that? And so that was the start of me building up to, doing some really cool and big things with all the glory to God through Project Mañana and where we are today.
Yeah.
Brian, I just want to ask you, I think that when you first got into Santiago, probably like a lot of people, you're maybe hoping to see some confirmation from God about what you're doing. Can you take us a little bit through that story about how you learned the language? Because that's truly an amazing story, man.
Yeah, well, thanks, Bruce. Yeah, so it was interesting. I knew 100% sure that God had called me into missions into the Dominican Republic, and I had joined another organization. This was prior to even knowing that a Project Mañana was coming. I joined another organization and ended up spending 3 years with them. And the reality was, in corporate America and through most of my career, everything I touched turned to gold. All the glory to God, but I was very successful. It went really well, with very minimal hiccups. So I kind of arrogantly and pridefully thought, well, I'll just go to the Dominican Republic and everything I touch will turn to gold. We'll help kids get a nutritious meal, and we'll share Christ with everyone, and we'll be baptizing more people than we know what to do with every day. And it's just going to be this amazing thing. And then I hit the wall. About 6 weeks into my time in the Dominican Republic, I realized I don't know anything about this culture. I don't know anything about the Spanish language. And frankly, it was very frustrating for a guy like me whose skill set depends on and is excellent in communication to not be able to communicate or understand what's going on in the culture was devastating for me. And so about 6 weeks into it, after, going out with translators and having people help me, I just came home. I remember I was wearing, it's a new missionary in the Dominican because they always wear flip-flops, shorts, and a t-shirt, and they have a backpack on. And it's not till later on that people understand that typical dress in the Dominican, you wear pants, even though it's 90 degrees and everything else. But I came home in my missionary outfit, and I remember just hitting the floor with my knees on the tile floor and just praying to God and saying, God, I know that you've called me here. I know that I have big things that I can help do for the kingdom here. And so my prayer just kind of turned into lamenting, and then I'm kind of arguing and begging and pleading God. And I just ended up crying myself and talking to God, crying myself to sleep that night. And I remember the last thing that I remember praying was, God, if you truly want me to learn the Spanish language, would you please give me that gift so that I can continue on and invest in your kingdom and help others find and follow you? And Bruce, guys, no joke. I had a dream in Spanish that night. I could still remember the dream now, 18 and a half years later. The next morning I woke up, I went across the street, went to the dormitory where the wonderful Dominican ladies, Jessica, Marisol, and Carmen, used to help cook for the mission teams and the missionaries. And I had learned some words over those 6 weeks, and we played charades. But that morning, these boisterous, wonderful, animated women were just kind of stone-faced and very quiet. And I woke up or went over there, ordering all of my breakfast and talking with them in fluent Spanish, to the point where one of them says, I can't believe you're speaking Spanish. Where did this come from? And then the joke became, as I went up and down the street that I'd been going to and visiting, talking with everyone, I had gone with the translator, everyone said, well, either he's a spy sent from the ministry to make sure we're being good Christians, or truly a miracle has happened. And, here we go. I'll never believe that I was smart enough or capable enough to learn that level of fluency in 6 weeks, and especially not one day of destruction, devastation to the next day of excellence and communication. It's a miracle from God. He gets all the glory. I'm
Awesome.
just a vessel that gets to use it. So
That's such a unique story. And Bruce was really excited. He was like, you got to ask Berman this question. I was like, well, Bruce, why don't you come on and ask that question? Because I love that he just has so many personal connections with our missionaries. I was like, I don't have the knowledge of these questions to ask you. So I love when Bruce is on to ask those questions.
Well, I'll give you something else. I think one of the backbones for Brian from a distance, you know, how we know him, is that he pours himself into people. I mean, your story about learning how to live for people instead of things resonates, because we took a little missionary trip there. It was a couple years ago now, I guess, and some of our staff went. And,
yeah,
you know, we're going to look to do things. And Brian had things lined up for us to do, but he had it so thought out that the things that we did and the way he led us into doing those things, and plus at night coming to our dorm and sitting down and recapping the day and gleaning what God was showing us each day. It was an amazing experience to see how much effort you gave into our growth when we're there to help you guys. And so it was such an example of, I'm thinking, okay, this is why his ministry is what it is. Because when we went to your school, I could see your imprint there on the young people, on your staff members, which, by the way, I think all your staff members are all Dominican, right? I mean, I don't know if that's literally true, but you've
yeah.
really invested yourself. And so anyway, my point is just Project Mañana. I know we want to talk about that, but from my viewpoint, the way you poured yourself into us in that week or whatever it was we were there was pre-planned, thought out, intentional, anointed, and you gave everything, man. So I think that you can talk about it, but from our vantage point, that's what we see in you, is you really do pour yourself. I mean, it's out of scripture, right? I mean, that's what Jesus did. And talk about that with Project Mañana. How does that tie into what you've done there?
Sure. Thanks, Bruce, for the kind words, but I give all the glory to God. We have an all Dominican staff. We now have 65 people on staff. I'm the token American missionary, and we actually just brought on a second American missionary. So that's it. The idea, and one of the things that I've learned in short-term mission trips and this international ministry thing, the organization I was with prior to starting Project Mañana, I was there for 3 years, and they did a ton of short-term mission trips and learned a bunch of incredible things from them, and really realized that oftentimes the mindset, at least from us Americans, the mindset is we're going to go and save the day. We're going to go and help and do all these wonderful things in countries that have less financial resources, less access to information, less knowledge about whatever it may be. And all of that is true, except for the part where we're going to save the day. I really realized that, yes, I'm a proud American, and we have wonderful, talented, gifted people that have financial resources and great ideas. But the reality is there's beautiful cultures, not only in the Dominican, but around the world. And so how do we, if I'm going to be the missionary in our staff, and it's not just about me, we've got an incredible staff, we need to be the cultural experts that bridge two worlds together. In this case, it's mostly the United States and the Dominican Republic. So we need to bridge those cultures together. It's about a bilateral, two-way street of investing in our mission trip guests, as well as investing in the Dominican nationals that we serve. So we put a lot of strategy into that. We put a lot of thought into that. The experience is really everybody wins. All ships rise with the tide in the experience of a mission trip. And I tell folks, usually on the first or second day that they're here, hey, spoiler alert, this isn't your mission trip. Your mission field and your mission trip is your life back home and wherever you live. This is just an opportunity to do intercultural ministry, to come and to learn and to practice and to disconnect from the real world so that you can connect with God and each other. But your mission field and your mission trip is right there back at home where you're at.
Yeah. And I think it's, speaking from experience, seeing you at ICOM, and seeing your team in action, it's not just you sitting out there to speak, it's your team, and your team is fully engulfed into the mission of Project Mañana. It's not, oh, we're going on a little respite to Lexington, Kentucky. No, your team is there to work, and they're there to, spread the message of what Project Mañana is doing in the Dominican Republic. And it was an honor to watch that happen too, as well.
Well, I appreciate that. I'll share that with them. One of the things that we tell people all the time is, as we're doing recruiting, frankly, recruiting and human resources is the most difficult challenge that we face. We want to have top quality people, and we want to have top quality people that fall into this order, that they love God first, love the Dominican Republic second, and love the way Project Mañana does ministry in the Dominican Republic to God. And if you fit all those categories, then we'll talk to you about a job. If you're just looking for a paycheck or a place to get, connected with the Americans, this is the wrong place for you. So because of that, we cherry pick people, but I'm very proud of our staff. Many of our staff, or a good portion of our staff, were children that were in our program over a decade ago. And now, they started at 10, 11, 12 years old, and now they're in their early 20s, mid 20s. Many of which are in our university scholarship program, going to get their bachelor's degree, but also working full-time with Project Mañana. So now they're breadwinners for their family. They're getting paid a very good wage. Not only that, as they get a pension plan, they get a medical and dental insurance plan and protection, and then they have a great job. And so that's the whole point of our, creative tagline of working together today for an eternal tomorrow, is we want to pay it forward. We would love every child that has gone through Project Mañana's program to grow up and to serve back into their community, whether it's through Project Mañana or their local church or some other organization. The idea is to activate them to be productive members of society who love Jesus and serve others.
And along those lines, I wanted to bring up, I don't know if you still do it, but could you explain the program that you either used to have or still have for the teen girls? I think it was at 15, and how you came about creating that program, why you had some statistical analysis and so forth that went into that, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So you're referring to the Princess Project, and the Princess Project is one of 6 of Project Mañana's projects. All of Project Mañana's projects are designed to help build strong families that will then, create change in their community and have a great trajectory in life. To build a strong family, we attack 3 different areas of holistic care. So mind, body, and soul, nutrition, education, spiritual development. And one of those projects, as you mentioned, is the teen girls. So unfortunately, the Dominican Republic has the 4th highest teen pregnancy rate in the world. And I'm not talking, 18, 19. I'm talking, sadly, 13, 14, 15, very young girls from the time that they can have babies. They're having babies for various reasons. And forever, their life is deviated. It's not over. It's simply deviated or put more complex to achieve goals and break the cycle of poverty. So we started a program called the Flower Girls. My wife, Nebraska, who's our executive director, and some of the women in the ministry said, okay, well, we'll meet with girls from 14 to 18 years old, and we'll talk to them about God's design for them. We'll talk to them about self-esteem, about their bodies, about sex and babies and marriage, and the order that God has put for us. But the problem was, when the students would get in at 14 years old into the program, they could have taught the program. They were already either sexually active or very familiar with reproduction and babies and sex and everything else. So we started lowering the age to 13, to 12, to 11. And then we had in the room a 10-year-old and an 18-year-old, 17, 18-year-old. And you just can't talk to them the same way in the same room. So we divided the group and we created the Little Buds, which is 10 to 13 years old. And then the Flower Girls is 14 to 17, 18 years old. And we call them that. They make paper mache flowers. And we use that really as a way to demonstrate to them how out of something very delicate like they are, beautiful things can happen, like a flower and bloom. And the girls do a really great analogy with it. So the idea is to teach these young ladies not only how does sex and reproduction work, but give them value and self-esteem and how God's design is. So we've had 52 of these young ladies that have gone through the program. The big goal at the end, or the prize that they get, is after they complete the program, we partner with their families. We never replace their family. We never want their family to think, well, you couldn't do it, so we did it. The quinceañera party, which is 15 years old, it's the coming of age celebration. And every young girl wants to aspire to that. But many of the families can't afford it. It's a big deal. They have to have a cake and a dress and lots of party stuff. And so they just skip it over. And this is devastating for these young girls who really want to feel like a princess that day. So we partner with their family. Project Mañana kicks in to help with we have over 2,000 beautiful dresses that the girls can choose from. They borrow the dress. We give them a tiara to keep, some jewelry they wear. They keep some, they give back some. And then we hire professional makeup, hair, a photographer. We get a gorgeous cake. The family also kicks in to help with some food. And then we use Project Mañana's facilities, and we throw a party. We throw a beautiful quinceañera. A lot of times, the dad is absent from the equation. Parents, unfortunately, have broken homes. So one of our strategies here, not only for the young lady, but also to help, again, build strong families, we bring dad back in for the event. Sometimes this gets dicey because mom or the kid or whoever maybe doesn't want dad, or maybe dad doesn't want to come in. But we really talk to both parents, explain this isn't about you today. This is about your daughter that the both of you created, and she is a princess in the eyes of God, in the eyes of us, and we want her to feel that way. And so it's an incredibly powerful opportunity using a party. And we love to party here in the Dominican. So
it's awesome. I still remember the room with all the dresses that people, I guess, donate and you buy. It's incredible. I don't know how you guys do it, but it's amazing.
I don't know how they do a lot of things.
Yeah.
Only God. That's how.
Yeah.
That's a great
Only
answer.
God.
So you mentioned your wife. Can you please tell us a story how you guys met? I've heard it. I want other people to hear it though.
Yeah, it's interesting. So part of my transformation process after my mother had passed away, it was just getting my priorities and my faith in line. And so I wanted to be an honorable, godly man. I had not dated and been an honorable man or dated in an honorable way prior to that. So I was on a hiatus. I didn't want to look for a woman or a wife, anything, for about 2.5 years. And there we were in the Dominican Republic. The church that I was serving at and working with, she was one of the youth leaders for the girls group, the girls high school group at the church. And I like to tell people I was jogging around the neighborhood with my shirt off, and she started throwing rose petals out the windows. Her story is completely different. So you'll have to just listen to her and compare which one is the same. But the truth is, we did meet in the church, and interestingly, I never asked her to be my girlfriend or to go steady. We just kind of got together one day. There's a really neat story about how God spoke to her and said that I was going to be her husband. She says it's in an audible voice. I don't know. If it's God, I don't blame him. I would have picked me also. But from there, I just asked her to marry me. I said, "You're the woman of my dreams. I would love to spend the rest of my life with you." So I proposed to her. We got married July 25th, 2009. We'll be celebrating 16 years of blissful marriage this July. And it's really neat. My wife is a Dominican national. And so she brings to me and to our family and to Project Mañana an incredible background and aspect. She has an incredible success story from literally the most impoverished environment growing up to being our executive director, who just pours out and serves and loves others and takes care of her family and many other people. So, and again, only God.
Yeah. No, and you can hear it in your voice, you can hear it in your stories that everything you do, you go to God. But what is the draw to you? Because it's for you, it's all or nothing. Where does that come from?
Man, I think it comes from my father, who was a very ambitious guy. He was in real estate and mortgage finance. And I remember he would invite me to his office from the time I was young, 3, 4, 5 years old was the earliest I can remember. and he had a corner office. He was a high-level executive, had a couple secretaries, walked around in a gorgeous three-piece suit, kind of shooting his fingers, this typical, 70s and 80s guy. And I said, man, I want to be like that. He was a mover and a shaker. He had his own parking place with his name on it. I said, that's what I want to be when I grew up. He also did a lot of seminars and speaking engagements. And so he would invite me to come watch him. And one day I was 5 years old. And before the seminar started, he was busy doing something. And I snuck my way behind the podium. Well, I didn't realize or know that the podium microphone was on. So I started pretending and giving a speech introducing the most amazing man in this world, which is my father, and he's going to speak. Well, there were already people in the room, and it was broadcasting on the speakers. And so people started laughing and cheering and clapping. And that was my first speaking engagement. Then he started bringing me back to be his introduction guy. And it was really fun. And so I fell in love with just doing anything. My father said, no matter what you do it with all your heart and strive for success. Don't go half-heartedly. And so that's part of my drive, part of my A-type or OCD personality, perhaps. But that's who I am.
I didn't see your parking space there when I was visiting you. I don't think you have one, but that's a goal, right? You can still work towards things.
It's interesting. And I say this with all humility, God has an incredible path for all of us, and we can choose probably various options on what we want to do with our free will and how we want to spend our time. And probably many of them are good choices that God would be happy with. For me, the shift radically happened from, I would say I was focused on success. I thought success meant money, and money could buy you a big house, which meant success, and a big car. And I was going to have 4 secretaries and 2 parking places. And that was my drive until I realized, and we talk about this a lot with our holistic partners, churches that get involved with Project Mañana. One of my first questions that I ask them is, hey, if we form a partnership, how would you like to measure success? Because oftentimes it's the numbers, or in that case was financial, or, big numbers, or this numbers or that numbers. And I have learned that success comes in many, many forms. And God's definition of success, I would say for the most part, is vastly different than culturally what our society tells us success looks like.
I think I could think back to another example of you guys operating that way, is that even outside the school, you guys do some things to kind of connect with the community. And again, I don't know if you still do it, but the water filtration systems, you had us go out and give them out in some of the communities. I don't know if especially like our donors, if they would understand what they are. I still don't know how they work. It's amazing. But can you describe what that is and what you do with those?
Yeah, so the water filter, the Clean Water Project, is another one of Project Mañana's 6 projects. And like all of our projects, it came out of just an organic need that we saw and we wanted to meet. So the sad statistic is 28,000 children on a daily basis die from water-related illnesses, and that's worldwide, not just in the Dominican Republic. And when we were here in the Dominican Republic years and years ago, we did a medical clinic. And after 2 days of translating for an incredible doctor from Michigan, I was teasing him at the end of the clinic. And I said, wow, you went to medical school and have all these years of experience. I learned it in 2 days. He says, what do you mean? I said, everything that you diagnosed, or most of the things you diagnosed, related back to either people were not drinking enough water and they were severely dehydrated, or they were drinking polluted water and had all kinds of problems. And he just got super serious with me from our joking. He said, Brian, if you had clean water in this community, 90% of the ailments that we've been looking at wouldn't have existed. And Bruce, wow, and guys, that broke my heart. I realized I used to wash the car and drink out of the hose when I was growing up. We use clean water to wash off the extra food off of our dishes into a garbage disposal in our sinks. I mean, I drink in the shower, maybe I shouldn't say that, but you can do that in the United States. And I just thought, we've got to figure this out. So again, through an incredible God story, we landed on the filter of hope, which is this little point of use micron filter. It's an incredible filter, a ministry out of Alabama that's now all over the world. And it's interesting because when people are doing the right thing, when they're trying to help, when they're honest and integral, like a filter of hope, not only do they have an incredible product, but the leadership and the board of directors behind the ministry is incredible. They grow and get introduced. I believe I introduced Filter of Hope to Agape Flights, and now through Agape Flights and Filter of Hope and Alan and a bunch of other folks into Cuba and around the world and Haiti, and
Yes.
you probably know better than I do. But it's this filter. You hook it to a 5-gallon paint bucket or any kind of bucket. You pour in the dirty water, and it produces 150 gallons of clean drinking water versus on gravity, and it's incredible. So not only did we understand that we can meet the physical need of providing clean water, but immediately it clicked in my head that there is no better way than when you're knocking on somebody's door. And if you do it in a strategic way, like we do at Project Mañana, where we've taken a census and we've mapped out the community, we spread out the buckets to, various houses until every house can get them. They can share with their neighbors. You knock on the door, you're saying, literally, I have this life-changing device that's going to give you access to clean water. The formula that you give your baby will be with clean water. You can bathe with clean water. You can cook with it. All of this wonderful, amazing stuff. And these people's eyes are the size of, UFO saucers. They're saying, thank you. And there's no strings attached. And then you say, you know what? This bucket, this clean water system reminds me of me. That on the bucket and our distribution, when we do it, we color it and put, everybody gets to put their mark on this beautiful white bucket, and it looks really light and bright and colorful. There's messages on there and verses on there. I say, listen, on the outside, we want to look like we're all put together and beautiful and everything is great. But on the inside of us, just like on the inside of this bucket, we're filled with filth and sin and dirtiness. But just like the filter cleans the water, Jesus Christ cleans those who accept him as his savior because of what he did on the cross at Calvary. And he is my filter that makes me clean on the outside, clean on the inside in front of the eyes of God. And, I'm sure there's other ways, but I'll say it this way. I don't see any more clear analogy to say, take this bucket and filter and change your physical life, and take this gospel message of Jesus and change your spiritual life and your eternal life. It goes so well together. So we've distributed now over 1,300 homes, thousands and thousands of people, 72.8 million gallons of clean drinking water on an annual basis that we're producing and growing. And we'll continue to do it. When we get donations for a bucket filter system, we get it, put it out.
I remember them looking at you a little cross-eyed, like, what are you talking about? And he would throw a bunch of dirt right in a bucket and then drink the water that's coming out of it. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So quite a demonstration.
So I'd be remiss, we're about 32 minutes into this podcast, and I'm now just asking, so explain how you first crossed paths with us at Agape Flights.
Well, when I came to Santiago and realized that here we have just limited resources on many things. Now, over the last 18 years, things have dramatically changed. But especially at that time, the first thing that I was counseled on or told by other missionaries was, you've got to open an account and become a partner co-op missionary with Agape Flights. And I had no familiarity with Agape Flights. I said, what is it? They said, it's the most amazing ministry that you can have people send cards and letters and other important paper documents to Agape Flights, as well as packages and things that you need that you can't get in the Dominican to provide for ministry and to be able just to live and survive. And even on the level of a personal level, if there's something special that you're craving or would just love to have to make it easier to be a missionary in a foreign country. And I said, that's amazing. And they do that as a mission organization. So I immediately connected, realized we definitely needed some way to get resources down here, things down here that we needed, school supplies, clean water filters, a part for a motor or different other things that we would need for whatever ministry opportunity that we're doing. So I signed up, and Agape for me was simply going to be a mail service, and they were going to bring me my stuff, and I was going to pay my bill, and that would be it. And then when I realized the heartbeat behind Agape, that it's so much more than a courier service, that the things that they are trying to do in partnering with us as missionaries in the Bahamas, in the Caribbean, in Dominican, and Haiti, and Cuba, around the world, go so far and beyond the services that you all provide. It became like an extension of our ministry here at Project Mañana. And then the people, being able just to meet the people behind it. These are people who truly are trying to change as many individual worlds as possible through flying these relief flights and crucial supply flights. It's been incredible. And you've made even my children's birthdays special by bringing down that special little gift or whatever that my son or daughter got to open up on their birthday. So I can't say enough good things about how you guys partner with ministry around the Caribbean and beyond.
Yeah,
I think you just did something with just to jump track here. Didn't you just do something with Alan and the baseball team? And
yeah,
what was that like?
Well, it's been a pleasure just to get to know Alan over many, many, many years. The director of Agape Flights, he's become a dear, dear friend. And of course, he's highly connected to baseball and loves working with that, and brought a team of over 30 people down to play some baseball through Score Ministries and to do a bunch of outreach things. A lot of the people on the baseball team that he brought down are not believers or have not been introduced to Jesus. So Alan said, that's okay. You could still come, but we're just going to talk to you about that. And so he called me up and said, Brian, I would love for you to come and invest some of your time and talk with our mission trip. So there I came over to the hotel conference room, and we sat in this huge circle after these guys played baseball for, I don't know how many, 12 hours a day. And they were exhausted and sweaty and, hadn't had a shower. And we sat there, and I just talked to them about, what does life look like and what is your priorities, and shared my story very vulnerably with them, and said that, listen, if God can use me, he can use all of us, because God qualifies the called. He doesn't call the qualified. And all of us ordinary people can do extraordinary things, because that's how God designed us. And looking at these baseball players' faces, even after being as exhausted as they were, they couldn't have been more intent, more attentive to the conversation. I shook probably everybody's hand, some of the adult leaders, chaperones, the pastor that was representing the church that came down. Just an incredible bow on what it meant to come down and play baseball with a purpose, for outreach, for ministry, for serving others. And that's all just because of my relationship with Alan and Agape Flights. It was great to participate in that.
Yeah, and Alan said you hit the ball out of the park, which I thought was a horrible pun, but I know what he means. I've heard you before, so it had to be fantastic.
No, he just kind of like struck the point when he came back and he was telling about what happened. He's like, sometimes the ministry they were with was struggling trying to find food, and he just reached out casually to you. Is like, hey, could you figure this out? And then the next day your wife came with like boxed meals for them. Like, that just shows your heart is like, hey, we're in this together. It's a partnership. It's not, hey, I'm on an island, I'm working alone. It's like, no, Agape's family. We got to work together to make this happen.
Well, they are on an island. I mean, let's not go too crazy.
That was another pun, Bruce. I think that
Thank you.
Gotcha. No, it's interesting. One of the things that I realized when I first came into ministry is in international missions, that a lot of mission organizations or missionaries don't work well together. I think everyone is so busy. They're trying to not only fundraise for their projects, but trying to deliver an excellent service or ministry. And so they don't have a lot of time for each other. And then maybe there's some more negative aspects of, I don't want you to do something better than me or be more popular than me, or the church supports you instead of supporting me. And that is I believe, just an awful mindset of untruth. It's not true. And one of the things that attracted me, as I was mentioning all the wonderful things about Agape, is how Agape partners with everybody and opens up. There is not this competition. And that's why when we created Project Mañana, we created the tagline, working together today for eternal tomorrow, working together. So I have tried to make it my personal mission, and I hope I've done a good job at this. I'm sure I failed at times, but that we work together and all boats rise with the tide. That's why I consult with many ministries. That's why I consult with many churches. That's why I wrote my book, simply to share best practices, share some of my worst practices. But the idea is we work together. So if we're all working for the same guy, we're all working for the same objective. When someone needs a plate of food or someone needs anything and we can help with that, that's when we rally the troops and we say, let's get you an amazing Dominican meal, get you set up with some activities, and we're going to come in and work together so that they can, have a wonderful experience and achieve the objectives that they're trying to achieve.
Well, Brian, we can't thank you enough for taking the time today. I just have one question left. If your mom could see what Project Mañana is today, what do you think she would say to you?
That's a tough one. I think Mom would be pretty proud. I think she'd be proud, maybe of course of her baby boy, but I think she would be proud at the amount of people that understand what it means to invest in people instead of things. She was a teacher by heart. Her whole objective in life was to share God's message of serving others and loving God first and loving others second. And the fact that it carried on beyond her time on this earth, I think she'd be pretty excited. I think she would absolutely love my wife. I picked a good one, and her grandkids. And I know Mom's proud. She would be proud of a lot of people.
I don't disagree with that. So, again, Brian, we're just so thankful. Plug your book real quick because it is a phenomenal book, and I want you to take time to let people know where to find it as well.
Well, yeah, thank you. I'm not an author, and many times people said you should write a book. You have lots of stories, incredible miracles that have happened. So during the pandemic, we all had some extra time. I wrote the book, Ordinary People, Extraordinary Things. It's about my life story, my wife's life story, and how those clashed together to form Project Mañana. And then it goes beyond that on how other people could fulfill their life purpose. It gives strategy for ministries and missionaries. It gives strategies for churches on how to create a global strategy on that works. And you could find it on Amazon. You could find it on Kindle. You can find it on projectmañana.org. You just type in Brian Berman or type in Ordinary People, Extraordinary Things. And I hope you enjoy the book.
Well, we appreciate you, man. You're such an inspiration. And by the way, I'm glad you joined the White Beard Club. That's cool.
Well, it came
Welcome
on whether
aboard.
I wanted it or not. This is 18 years of ministry and a wife and 2 kids later.
Oh,
Is this what I have to look forward to? Yeah. Is that what you're telling me?
Exactly.
You want to do the outro?
No, you do something cool. You do the cool snippy.
Okay. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening. It's always a pleasure to hear you guys saying how much you guys love this. Again, tune in next week for another special guest. And Brian, again, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
You bet, guys. It was my pleasure. God bless you, and thank you for having me.